Climate change is a bitter reality in today's fast-pacing and modernizing world, and battling this issue is no longer a mere subject of talks. Realizing this, India has been strategically advancing when it comes to the adoption of eco-friendly practices that will help build a sustainable world. WattPower presents Renewable Energy Summit 2nd edition was yet another effort in this direction. The mega event brought together the best of the minds from global and Indian energy sectors. In this episode, we bring you some snippets from the summit that provided a platform for discussions aiming to build a healthy planet for a healthy life.
Let me take this opportunity by welcoming all of you right here at WattPower Presents Times Now Renewable Energy Summit. And our 2nd edition brings to us a very interesting theme, which is Energize Your Eco-Consciousness. As we take this opportunity by extending a very warm welcome to you, let me start by this quote from none other than Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "What we are doing to the forests of the world is but a mirror reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to one another."
This Renewable Energy Summit, actually it's very timely. We have only recently concluded COP28. And as all of you are aware, in COP26 in Glasgow, Honorable Prime Minister, he gave a call for a life that is lifestyle which is sustainable, which is commensurate with the reproduction of resources which nature can sustain. 2070 was our net zero as far as India is concerned. And in the intermediate targets, 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. That was one of the intermediate target. We have done a lot of progress as far as renewable energy is concerned. Our renewable energy is about 186 gigawatt, including the large hydropower, as we speak on today. The share of renewable energy, particularly the fluctuating renewable energy, that is solar, wind, and some of the small hydro, that has reached about 12.5% of total electricity generation.
The next in line, we bring you excerpts from a panel discussion titled Fortune Favors the Bold, CEO Insights for Financing Renewable Dreams. During the panel, a group of experts from the domain of energy shared their thoughts on the financial strategies that could help reshape India's vision of renewable energy adoption. It was followed by a fireside chat with Divya Prakash Choraria, CEO, WattPower Systems Private Limited.
What exactly is the renewable energy financing landscape today in the country, right? What factors have actually contributed to the growth of this particular sector in terms of the financing? Be it market, be it policy, be it corporate actions. And is it enough to ensure that whatever renewable energy goals that we have for ourselves over the next couple of decades, we're actually able to meet them?
If we recall about 10 years ago, I think the renewable energy the cost was so prohibitive that it needed to be bundled with the thermal energy as part of National Solar Mission and then supplied to the states and the distribution companies to make it affordable. Today, we are at a point of time where the solar and wind energy on its own are cheaper than the new thermal plant. If we set up a new coal-based plant today and we compare it with the new solar or new wind plant of the same size, approximately if a large-scale plant, then I think the costs are less. Mr. R.P. Gupta, in his opening remarks in the keynote address, mentioned about if we add the cost of storage, it is high. So I think yes, it is high, and I think the time will come when it will we will see that. India has a huge market. The scales which we have, I think the cost is bound to come down.
Maybe turn to you and your thoughts on the question.
whether we talk about a older technology like solar, or whether we are talking about evaluating a new technology, the first and the foremost thing is synergy. And when we say synergy, it has to be across. So, coming from 2010 to today, we have looked at a pace of 18 times of growth in the solar industry. It couldn't have been possible without a very stable capital flow. And when we are talking about a capital flow, we are also addressing international capital, which we had been looking at, and also the Indian capital, which is probably going more risk-averse when we look at putting funds into renewable energy sector. So, if we have to look at specifically, from the space where we are coming from, mostly in the solar industry as a manufacturer.
We need to understand infrastructure as an asset class first, right? Infrastructure as an asset class is not an asset class where you can make multiples like 5x, 10x. It's an asset class which sort of gives you high teen returns, and hence the risks that you have to factor in also have to be, it's a low risk asset class, and that has been the problem when it comes to lending especially.
I would like to take the House on the orbit where the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister of India has declared that we need to be the largest energy exporters of the country today and look towards that in the next 30 years to come. Now, we've been energy importers till now. Now we want to be energy exporters. This he has declared only by virtue of the kind of resource we have in this country with respect to natural, in the form of sunlight, wind, as well as one more very important dimension, that is nuclear. Now, if you see the sustainability of renewable energy cost and how we generate hydrogen at the minimum cost, and then downstream green molecules, which will become the biggest elements of export in this country. And that will take this country to a different paradigm altogether. The whole global energy market today is $16 billion a day. And where do we stand 20 years down the line as exporters? What market we want to capture? Today, all the financing institutions, the government institutions, the Niti Aayog, we as entrepreneurs, we need to synergize towards that goal.
Let me first try to understand how historically solar has become the most dominant renewable energy technology in the country.
To adopt any new technology or move forward with anything new, there is a very important role the government plays. And in this case, the government here in India has played a phenomenal role setting targets and understanding that this is going to be an important source of energy that needs to be deployed, right? Within a modest target of about 20 gigawatt, getting it revised to another 100 gigawatt, and now we're looking at about 500 gigawatt until 2030. I mean, the most important thing is for the government to actually realize and understand why and how important this would be. Now, in terms of the changes, what I have probably seen in the past decade, primarily if I have to speak only about solar, we've seen a drastic growth in terms of all the different stakeholders coming into the industry now. I mean, starting about 2012, 2013, there were a bunch of niche players to now. How I like to see it is, all the international funds, your hedge funds getting interested in this landscape, right? And this is only because of the target or the kind of opportunity that they see in India.
How do you think the technological interventions or advancements that are happening in the other parts of the world are going to impact what's happening with the domestic module manufacturing industry? And how do you overcome that?
I mean, at least how I look at it, doesn't matter where it is getting innovated or, the technology getting created. Who's the best one to be able to use it in the most optimum way is the person who's going to actually make the most benefit out of it. Now, India has an amazing requirement for this particular space. Even in terms of the module manufacturing space, if you see, we're already talking about 60 odd gigawatt of nameplate manufacturing capacity that should be up and running by end of this year, right? And I think we're already there at the module manufacturing space. Definitely, there is a huge gap in terms of when you see it from cell to, the gap between the cell manufacturing nameplate capacity versus the module manufacturing capacity. But I see a lot of new business owners, entrepreneurs getting interested in this space. We see a lot of new age businesses putting their money in the renewable energy space. Someone just told me that, especially if you specifically see in Gujarat, right? We probably, every 20 or every 30 odd kilometers, you probably see a new module manufacturing line coming up. So, if we have to cater to, let's say, a 40 gigawatt kind of demand locally, domestically, there is no other way than actually start manufacturing it. And because if you want to achieve the right price at this scale, setting up manufacturing domestically is going to be the most key part. And then I think what's going to be very important is to look at what technology we choose as a country, and at the same time, look at investing significantly on the entire value chain rather just on the module bit, because just investing or only manufacturing modules is not going to solve the problem. What's going to be very crucial is your cells, your wafers and the other stuff, where I'm sure there is a lot of work happening. But the faster we do it, I think that's the benefit we get it. I think I totally agree that technological stability is probably the key for an investor to put in money on a manufacturing space. We started off with poly. Now we're also talking about HJT. Between the two, we've seen multiple transitional technologies which has stuck around for, let's say, 6 months to 12 months. We moved from poly to monoperc. Then we're talking about bifacial. Then we're also talking about TOPCon. And what is becoming very difficult is, to adapt or, to set up these technological manufacturing space, you need significant amount of money. So we've seen sizable funds coming into more proven technologies, be it solar, be it wind, primarily for ready-to-build assets or already revenue-generating assets. But where we definitely lack is new technologies, be it battery, storage, hydrogen, and manufacturing for sure. I think what is very important is to create a more risk-averse ecosystem, an entire value chain, wherein the confidence is built for an international investor to invest the right amount of capital and definitely see that growth coming into India.
The conversations continue, and after a short break, we will bring you more insights from the key discussions and case studies surrounding the buzzing topic of renewable energy. Stay tuned. Welcome back to WattPower Presents Renewable Energy Summit 2nd Edition. The next panel discussion is titled Policy and Regulation in a Green Future, The Road Ahead. Vishnu P. Sudarshan, partner JSA Advocates and Solicitors, moderated the discussion.
In terms of the way the energy transition and move towards decarbonization and green economy is moving, it has multiple facets to it, including renewables, biofuels, carbon capture, hydrogen. Energy transition also includes EVs, amongst others. So from that perspective, what do you think from an economic standpoint, as from your lens, the most fundamental aspect which the government should realize and work on?
While we are certainly planning and rapidly moving towards energy transition, reducing consumption of fossil fuels, going towards renewables, I want to talk about, and I want to alert actually the policymakers. I want to alert and probably provide some kind of a forward guidance about the fact that in our country, we may have enough financial resources for energy transition, We may have enough human resources to work towards energy transition. We may have enough technological resources also to move towards energy transition. But I perceive a challenge from the point of view of availability of material resources.
A lot of climate change is taking place, and there's need that we should do something about that, and renewable helps in that, particularly when we are just out of COP28, where there has been a call on last day to transition away from fossil fuels. So this is quite relevant time when we are talking about renewable energy. So thank you and congratulations to AT. So what we see with regard to energy demand in countries, I call it double transition. Double transition in the sense that first transition is that we want to become a developed country, we want to grow. We have large population of 140 crores, which World Bank is saying is largest, and maybe if not largest as per our statistics, it will be largest in coming couple of years.
We have Mr. Dharmendra Gupta from O2 Power, and he's been driving the business and dealing with the real nuts and bolts as we see, and in terms of actually dealing with the day-to-day issues. So would you like to touch upon some of the top three challenges that you see from a policy and regulatory perspective? And what exactly do you think needs to be next or fixed from a policy predictability standpoint? Whilst it's good to say policy predictability is important and we all agree, but the important point is, how do you do that? What is the mechanism? Would you like to touch on this?
Challenges are the different of the different segment. So first of all, if we touch about the bidding route, now the industries, BNA, O2 Power, BNA, IPPs, most of the big IPPs, they are participating in a bidding routes. So the bidding routes, the developer are facing the challenges in terms of the signing of PPA. Signing of the PPA, it's a big uncertainty over the industries. Thereafter, the adoption of PPA, tariff order, and all these things. Next, if we touch about the open access route, because one is the bidding approach, and the next one is the open access. Developer are also approaching to sell power in a open access to approach the C&I, big C&I consumers. So in a open access route, there's a policy uncertainty in terms of the multiple states. Each state has their own regulations. There is no universal regulations, and as you saw the few months back, there's a captive structuring. Each state has their own captive structuring regulations. So being a industries, being an investor, we need a certainty for the investment point of view.
In terms of the fact that sustainability is a key driver and underpinning renewables or energy transition or move towards a green economy, how do you see the policy landscape emerging for transition or adopting green practices, especially from a supply chain perspective, from an ESG perspective, and integrating and rolling it out?
One thing is very clear, that the intent to move towards renewables is there from all practitioners. Every industry, you speak to any company, whether their investors are in India or the investors outside India, stakeholders demand for net zero targets and stakeholders demands for decarbonization. And the intent from the board level at most of these companies already exists. So there is no question of moving towards as close to 100% RE future as possible from an intent perspective. But I think there are a few areas where I think we've got a little stuck. I think the last decade was phenomenal in terms of policy, in terms of support, in terms of how India really accelerated its RE journey. But somewhere we've got stuck on a few things, and I think we need to overcome these and just dislodge some of these hurdles. One of which is this narrow view of renewables being solar and solar being renewables only. I mean, there's a massive opportunity in India for the size of the agri-economy we have to really build a nexus between agri-residue and agri-fuels to be a real major game changer.
We are talking about a capital-intensive industry wherein technology plays a very, very crucial role, because we are the life cycle of any project in this sector is extremely high. So when we talk about new innovations coming in, that means we are also talking about adapting it, and new technologies reforms have definitely helped India to achieve the pace that we have growing in this RE industry. So RE industry's growth, if we have to talk about solar or any other industries as well, has been phenomenal. That was possible with resource optimization. When we talk about resource optimization, that has to be fueled with technology advancements.
As we move towards meeting our NDC goals and targets, and ingrained within that is the energy transition. One of the key elements of the energy transition will be in terms of how to bring in a predictable long-term investment policy which induces investments, fosters competition, and also focuses on localization of manufacturing of products and technologies. That's the key that's going to drive. The second key element which is going to drive energy security and energy transition is going to be in terms of raw material supply. Look at nickel or copper, look at the prices that are there, and we are not able to, if we are not in a position to actually go ahead and meet our requirements in terms of the key metals and minerals for energy transition, then it is going to be a significant cost issue. That's one. Second is in terms of it will slow down the pace at which we will move towards decarbonizing the economy. So I think one of the fundamental aspects that we should be looking at is in terms of underpinning our policy and regulations with long-term vision, predictability and certainty, and with defined sunset clauses, and focus also on raw material supply and localization.
Taking cognizance of the imminent need of the mass adoption of renewable sources of energy, International Council on Clean Transportation conducted a case study on e-mobility in urban planning, the transformation of electric public transport.
If you look at in terms of the emission that is going to come overall, and this is what we did some analysis looking at 2020 versus the 2050 scenario, you will realize that whatever gains the West is going to make because of the availability of technology or the availability of finance in the 30-year scenario, those gains will completely be offset by the rise in emission that will happen in the developing economies. And this is based on the business as usual scenario. So if we don't do anything, look at the numbers that will come from China, India, Brazil, and some of the other places. The numbers are shockingly high, and then we are not being able to meet some of these international commitments that we as a group have committed across the world. So something has to be done on the transport emissions that are coming from various countries. But also we have to look at how do we address this whole issue of emission that will come from the marine and the aviation sector.
This brings us to the end of this special episode on WattPower Presents Renewable Energy Summit 2nd Edition. A gathering of stakeholders of the energy sphere, the ambitious forum not only witnessed key discussions on the modern agenda that could help tackle critical topics, but also sought to answer the difficult and crucial questions facing the energy sector.